Hi, I'm the PC Expert Amateur, and I want to give you a review of ASUS's technical support team. And it includes their customer service team a little bit, but mostly it's tech support. So I have had a few dealings with ASUS over the past year and a few months now, and maybe I can just briefly say that based on my own personal experience in and around customer service and tech support for a couple of decades, I guess it would be, I'm not impressed. And I wasn't impressed in 2022 when I contacted them for help, and I'm not impressed now. So in 2022, I was putting together my computer, and I was having a problem where I couldn't install Windows on the SSD. And I mentioned this in the previous video about ASUS and their support. And instead of, I tried to do this in chat, and it became a whole big complicated mess. And you can watch that video for more information on that, because I don't want to go into all the details. The point of it is that it became unnecessarily complicated, and the efforts that they made to actually resolve it were not good. And it was very, for me, it was very frustrating. And at one point, they actually failed to do some basic troubleshooting with me, and didn't research enough to try and determine what the problem was that I was experiencing, which was that I had turned on the rapid storage technology, which is for using RAID. And so the computer, seeing just the one SSD that I had at the time, it assigned that one to RAID, and so there was nothing left. RAID is for backup, sorry. There was nothing left to install Windows to. So when it's looking for a drive, it cannot choose a RAID drive, because RAID drives are for backups. And I only had that one drive, and I didn't know that rapid storage technology did that. So try as I might, I couldn't get it to work, and they were pushing in, they were not doing a good job of handling it. And ultimately, I had to figure it out on my own, which I was able to do. Had I left it up to them, I probably would have ended up waiting weeks for a replacement motherboard, which would not have helped at all, because the problem wasn't the motherboard, it was the setting in BIOS. So while making my PC building series, I had a problem where I had to replace my motherboard, and NextEgg very graciously replaced it for me. And the replacement, if you've watched my videos on the PC building series, you'll know that the replacement seemed to have a problem. And that's in episodes 18 and 19. And so I contacted ASUS to get their thoughts on what it might be, because I'd done a little bit of troubleshooting by that point already with 2 different power supplies, and there seemed to be a problem, but I couldn't find documentation in the manual that would clarify for me the LED that I could see that was sometimes on and sometimes off. It was red LED that was nestled in the corner where the VRMs are for the CPU. And so I talked to this guy on the phone, and he was like, well, I'm going to open up a trouble ticket so you can possibly get an RMA, which is a return merchandise authorization, which is, in other words, is they're going to accept the damaged product, and they're going to replace it at their cost, including the shipping, both directions. And he didn't really make much effort to try to troubleshoot it with me. And so I filled out the form. I sent it in. They completely misunderstood and said, okay, we're going to help you to fix your router. I was like, what? Did they not read the document when they sent this email or before they sent the email? How can they think I'm talking about a router when it's even stated in the document that I don't have internet installed and this is about a 24-pin and an 8-pin and a 4-pin for the CPU, for the motherboard? How did they jump from that to a router? I was totally baffled. I'm still baffled. So I wrote back and I said, hey, it's not about the router. Didn't mention a router. It is about the motherboard. And so they wrote back and they gave me a suggestion on something that I could do, which I had already done. And I responded that I already tried that. It didn't work. And they said, okay, we're going to authorize you to return that motherboard. I was like, oh my God, because I had waited for weeks for Newegg to replace the first one. And I didn't want to wait because this was a gift that I was supposed to give to my niece for Christmas. And it was already past Christmas and New Year's and her birthday, and I still didn't have the computer ready to give to her. Well, this is the 27th. I gave it to her yesterday, January 26th. So she finally has her computer. All's well. But, man, I didn't want to have to wait a few more weeks for something that could potentially have nothing to do with the motherboard. It could have been an oversight on my own. So I thought about all the steps that I had taken, and I was going to try making a video going through all the steps you go through when you try troubleshooting this kind of a problem. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking, did I miss anything? And I figured it out. Just like I had in 2022, I figured out the problem and verified it and corrected it and had the troubleshooting team, the technical support people who should know how to troubleshoot, but are relegated. Technical support always gets relegated to email communication, which is a very inefficient way for a technical support person to help a person resolve their hardware issues. And it's a cheap way for them to save money, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth if they don't do a good job. And they didn't, because had they just bothered to say, okay, he's not getting power to the motherboard. If he tests the 24-pin motherboard cable from the power supply with the cable tester, it works, and the lights, the lit LED fans go on, but when he tries to use the power button, nothing happens. The light on the power button doesn't go on because and lights on the motherboard aside from that one red light in the corner where the VRMs is didn't go on, which suggests there's a power flow problem. Now, power flow problems can be a number of different things, but primarily it's going to be the power supply cable, the power button. Those are the top three possibilities, unless your motherboard is totally hosed. And I had already tried two different power supplies with their individual power cables or cabling. I'd also tried two different the power cable going from the power supply to the wall. I had tried two different sockets on my surge protector, as well as going directly to a wall socket, a different wall socket than the surge protector is plugged into. None of that made a difference. But then I thought, well, it was really awkward to get everything plugged into for the power button, the power LED, the storage LED, So is it possible that maybe I plugged the power button into the wrong pair of pins? So I got my handy dandy magnifying glass out, and I detached the head. I turned this on so I could see down in that little crevice between the PSU shroud or power supply shroud that covers that compartment and the edge where those pins are. There's this little space where they had silk screened the information for those pins. And lo and behold, I had plugged it in to the wrong pins. It was plugged into the power LED pins instead of the power button pins. And once I switched to the correct one, no problem. Everything was resolved. Now, if we look at the email support that I received from them, it's clear that they are not native English speakers. And it's clear that they're not particularly well trained. Now, the stuff that I know, some of it is through training, some of it is through research, and some of it is through experimentation. I know a lot about hardware, and I figure things out sometimes on my own because I guess I'm smart enough to do that. But if they're going to hire people who don't know how to do what I do, they don't know how to analyze and think step by step what to investigate, they don't teach them this stuff explicitly, then they're basically populating their tech support team with customer support people who don't know tech. It's very vexing. So I didn't respond when I got the RMA message, and I'm going to respond after this video, because I fixed the problem. I figured it out, and I was like, I'm going to test it first, make sure it works, and then I can let them know it. So yeah, it's all done. Works fine. And had they bothered, just say, hey, double check that you've plugged in the power button to the correct pins, it would have all been good. And had I not done that, and had I done all of the other steps I was planning to do, which was remove the graphics card, remove the memory, remove the SSD, and then see if it works then, and then plug, if it does work, plug in one, the SSD, the RAM, one by one, putting everything back in, and see when it stops working. I never would have found the problem. So, yeah. As far as my experiences with ASUS, it has taught me that they don't pay attention to details. They are not well trained in technical support. They are probably dealing with a lot of cases at one time. They're probably being overloaded because ASUS is being stingy for whatever reason. The list just goes on and on. So as far as, we'll start with communication. They clearly, in this case and in previous issues that I've contacted them about, they don't look back on the log of emails or any internal notes that they make about the case. They mix different things up onto the same case number, so you can't, and they don't tell you which one they're referring to. They do a bad job. So the list just kind of goes on and on with ASUS, and I don't think that, in this case at least, I don't think it's maliciousness. When they screwed up last year and they were producing motherboards that were by default putting too much voltage into the new CPUs that were coming out, causing the CPUs and to start melting down and damaging the motherboard, or maybe the motherboard was melting and damaging the CPU. I don't really remember which. It was covered by Gamers Nexus primarily with a very good analysis of what was going on. They were trying to avoid responsibility. They were not helping customers. They put out a BIOS update and then said, if you use this, it voids your warranty, which is stupid, because that means that every BIOS update is going to void your warranty, even though they were saying this is the solution to the problem, but if you use it, there's no more warranty. And it was only because people protested to web channels on YouTube like Gamers Nexus, Jay's 2 Cents, Linus Tech Tips, and a few others that I'm not aware of right now, that pressure was applied by those tech channels, and ASUS had to change their position, and they were forced. And this is not the first time that ASUS has been caught with their pants down, not providing good support. I mean, maliciously avoiding good support. Several years ago, there was a situation that became known as ASUS Gate. I'll let you research that for yourself. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, through my various trouble tickets and communications with ASUS, they really have a horrible customer and tech support structure put in place. The people in charge are probably not doing their jobs right. The tech people are not being trained right. And, you could probably get the same quality of support by just talking to customer support at ASUS, because they really don't know much. So how would I rate ASUS? In terms of paying attention to details, and looking at past notes and going back through emails to make sure that things have or haven't been tried already, I'll give them 2. In terms of politeness, I'll give them a 9. They were never rude to me. In terms of the ability to logically, step by step, analyze a situation, I will give them. I'll give them a 3. In terms of the ability to properly troubleshoot a situation, and granted, it's kind of difficult through email, but hey, they chose that situation, not me. I would prefer to do it on the phone because it's a lot faster and a lot easier, a lot less irritating for customers, so they don't have to wait for days and days and days, or weeks, or months. In my case, some of the things stretched over months. And in one case, something that was resolved was stretched over months. So, troubleshooting skills, yeah, I mean, it kind of falls within the whole logical and analytical step-by-step process thing. They don't do it well. I think they're just kind of like monkeys following a script that they don't really understand. Some of them, I mean, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them at least. So I'll give them a 3. In terms of promptness, yeah, not so prompt. I would say that I would give them a 4, and willingness to help, I'll give them an 8. So overall, I'm going to have to go with a 4 for their score, because overall, my experience with them has been negative. My opinion of their customer and technical support teams is negative. I mean, personally, if I were able to make the decision, I would probably get rid of the management that's handling those teams. I would go in there and I would look carefully at the training program, sit through it and see whether they're teaching logic and analysis, proper troubleshooting steps via email. I would see about the possibility of turning it into chat and telephone only instead of email because of the large number of challenges that occur when you do it in an asynchronous manner, which is to say where you're not communicating real time with each other. So there's the constant disconnect between the customer and the technician. I would retrain all of the technicians on all that stuff, and I would they'd have to go through evaluations. There'd have to be a quality control team. So yeah, so I'm sorry, ASUS, you get a 4, and you really need to improve that. I understand that maybe maybe things are tough, but things are tough all over. I mean, from 2019 to the beginning of 2024, actually, not even from late 2019 to early 2023, the cost of rent in my area has doubled. It went from like $600 to $1,200. That's a lot of that has to do with to greed and politicians not making laws to protect against that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my review. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.